Shout out to Gab Talk. He was the one that kind of informed me based on a few of his posts recently about O'Shea's channel, and I caught a little bit of it today, which I really wanted to get on. I even called, but I couldn't get through. The subject was on woke Christians. Now, I have my piece to say about it. I know a lot of people are very hostile towards Christians, and, to some degree I understand, because of the things that have happened with white supremacists using our faith to do what they did to us during slavery, and how they used a lot of religious things within Christianity to basically oppress us. One thing I'd like to note is that they didn't want us to read the whole Bible, first of all. They only cherry-picked scriptures and used that against us. But another thing that I'm going to say, as far as, I'm going to come back to this subject, but as far as being a woke Christian, if you're a Christian, period, you need to be woke, period. Even before this woke movement, everyone's using that term so much, it almost seems redundant. But if you're a Christian, you're supposed to be woke anyway. You're supposed to be conscious, especially of where you are and what you are doing as a believer, as a Christ follower, as a follower of the Anointed One. You have to be conscious about everything. And it starts with you as far as making your actions sound. That's what I know to be true with me as far as being an Orthodox Christian. And even before I was Orthodox Christian and just being a non-denominational sort of Protestant type Christian, my parents brought me up to realize that as well. Not to say that they lived my faith for me. No, I had to make my own decisions. And they were very informative with me about that. I didn't have the ideology of some kind of white supremacist type situation because my parents didn't raise me that way. As a matter of fact, my father, may he rest in peace, memory be eternal, was the first that I even heard of black people in the Bible from. So I didn't have that baggage. I think a lot of Western people over here, black people, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful, Western people, period, black or white, have a very Western concept of Christianity. And this, what people are calling themselves woke, I understand. You don't want to be in a claptrap, and what I mean by that is just like, I'm kind of loosely using that term, kind of like the same old thing where it's just like a recorded claptrap. You don't want anything mundane. And, I've heard about pork chop pastors and all that. I didn't have that experience. Even when I was a Protestant, I pretty much went to a non-denominational, multi-ethnic church. It had an equal amount of every race you could think of, as well as we were pretty much a teacher, preacher type church, where I grew up, the church that I went to. But even before that, like earlier on, I realized that I had to live this for myself. And how I came into Orthodoxy was actually questioning that, and just asking the Most High, what's up? Because I was challenged by a lot of people. I had friends in different religions too. Friends that were 5%ers, friends that were into, the occult, friends that were Nation of Islam, atheists, you name it. And they challenged me. But those challenges basically never made me question God. It just made me question the path that I was on. And here I am. And this took years. It didn't just, I didn't just decide to be Orthodox. As a matter of fact, I was kind of resistant towards it. But God dealt with me in a special way that answered a lot of my questions, but still challenged me as a person in my life, and just the way that I not only looked at myself, but the way that I looked at the world. I've always had a certain look at the world that was a care, but it's almost like God, it's really hard to describe what God does, when he makes you look at the world with his eyes even more so. I believe that God is always drawing us no matter what, you know? And even if you're an atheist or whatever, God is drawing you to him, you know? Even if you don't believe in God, God is always drawing you to him. He's drawing me to him. He's drawing everyone. I can't look down on anybody because of that. And anytime that I've ever had pride or some kind of arrogant attitude, God has dealt with my heart. That's being woke. It's humbling. I cannot look down on anyone. Even a lot of people that are talking about, you know, oh, you Christians follow a myth and all that. This whole mythicist ideology, I'm going to say something about that. That in of itself was also thought up by a white man. I'll give you a few names, by the way. Gerald Massey being one of them, and Kersey Graves being another. And there's a bunch of other ones too. And a lot of brothers and sisters have taken that into their literature. Even people that I admire have taken that into their literature and used it, saying that, you know, the whole mythicist thing basically tries to deny everything in the Bible. AM1, you know I dig you, but I disagree with you. As a matter of fact, there have been giants that were found. A lot of people don't realize there was a worldwide flood, and a lot of that, I don't just read the Bible, by the way. In our tradition, we have the Didache, which is the beginning of a lot of what Christians represent. It's earlier than, you know, the whole canon of scriptures. But even when we talk about the canon of scriptures, the book of Enoch is one book I think everybody should read. I was so happy. I think it was Lisa some months back that had a reading of the book of Enoch. It was so cool that she had that on there, man. A lot of people don't know about the book of Enoch. In our Ethiopian Orthodox tradition, it's a part of it. It's a part of our tradition because not only is it written in Ethiopic, I mean, you cannot, I don't understand why it's not in the Protestant Bible. It doesn't make any sense. People are trying to read 66 books that, you know, and they leave books like the book of Enoch and Jubilees out. That doesn't make sense at all. Because a lot of those books, especially the book of Enoch, can answer a lot of questions, especially when you talk about heaven and hell. But there were actually giants that roamed the earth, and that goes back to the Watchers and all that stuff. And if you want empirical proof, just Google it. There has been skeletons and stuff found around the world of these giants. It tripped me out when I talked about it. I mean, found out about that. But even getting back to that, A1, I understand, what you're saying in regards, but I need to also correct you on this, sir. And I'm not trying to put you down because I admire what you do. We're kind of in the same field. A lot of Christians are not just focused on the afterlife. It says on earth as it is in heaven. We're supposed to be, and I'm speaking to all you woke Christians, especially the ones that are looking down on people, you need to realize where you are. You need to realize that you're supposed to be on earth as it is in heaven. You see what I'm saying? Our prayer is like that. On earth as it is in heaven. That means that you're an ambassador from heaven, from the Most High. You're supposed to be that. So what we're supposed to do while we are here is to bring heaven on earth. We're supposed to be that representation of, even when it comes to justice, bringing that. And that brings up another thing. I've been seeing this a lot. And I'll be honest, I've gotten in my ego or flesh and has snapped back hard at people for this because, no one wants to be insulted. Yeah, I'm human. I'm not going to justify what I did. But a lot of people are talking about, a lot of people are talking about basically like how there was never any insurrections or revolutions done by Christians. This is horrible. Come on, you guys. And I'm speaking from a Christian perspective. I'm not talking about any other religions. Yes, there's a lot of other religions that have had something to do with our growth as a people. I'm speaking from a Christian perspective, and it's something that I've always taken notes of too. There are a lot of slave insurrections, and I'll mention a few. One of the earliest ones, and I've mentioned this in other videos. I can't stand when I see people that are just making black Christians look as if they were some subservient type situation because of things that have actually happened. But they don't look at the other side of that. When you talk about slave insurrections, when you talk about things that were pretty revolutionary for us, a lot of them were also led by Christians. Let me give you a few names. Kempa Vita of Congo. That was a revolt that happened on the continent of Africa. Who else? We can talk about the Stono Rebellion. Some in the Haitian Revolution were also Christians as well. You know, we can talk about the movement of even Pan-Africanism, because a lot of the earlier ones were Christians, especially Marcus Garvey. You know, up into the civil rights. There's so many people. Ida B. Wells. I mean, man, there's a lot of cats that were Christians George McGuire. I mean, it's a long list. I have to do a video on this since a lot of people don't know this. Not all Christians were just sitting down and taking crap. Even the Christians in Ethiopia didn't let the Portuguese get away with that. They sent them packing when they caught game on them trying to colonize their land and do other things that were not cool as well. They sent them packing. The Battle of Ottawa actually just celebrated an anniversary. Don't think all Christians were just chilling. No. You know, there's always been that kind of resistance too, because, you know, you look at a Nat Turner, you look at a Denmark Vesey, you look at a David Walker, you look at a Harriet Tubman. Those were all Christians. So, you know, a lot of people are always kind of talking down on Christians, but they don't look at, and I'm specifically talking about black Christians. They don't look at the history of what we've done already. No, I'm not ignoring the complacency, which unfortunately happened, you know, post-civil rights. You know, and for me, as a believer in Christ, I myself am involved in where I am, you know. I believe that God will use our creativity to bring, you know, that element of peace to people's lives, man. To me, being, you know, when you, the term woke Christian, like I said, I try not to use that term because it seems so redundant, the term woke. But for me, I'm challenged to be woke all the time. God is always on me about being conscious about everything that I do. And I'm saying this not to look down on anyone, because I can't, because I'm human just like all of you. I can't look down on my atheist friends. I can't look down on my non-Christian friends anywhere. And at the same time, God will use things from anyone to encourage me and to basically draw me to him. You know? Yes, I not only believe that Christ is real, I believe that Christ basically gave us the Holy Spirit. And it's not something to look down on people. It's something to convict your heart and to clean your heart. It's one of the reasons I even have the logo that I have with the light, which I also drew, which is a whole nother meaning, where the light shines from the inside and exposes anything that's inside of you before it could shine out. And the skull is a representation of basically our humanity and our finite, and just also obviously death, but death to those things that are trying to kill us. You know, the more the light shines, of course you're going to expose everything, but it must shine from the inside before it shines out. A lot of these people, a lot of cats on O'Shea's channel, and it's not just there with this particular subject, are so venom spitting at, you know, black Christians, but they have a whole narrative that's, to be honest, I find silly. You can say the same thing for scientists that you can say for a lot of white supremacists using Christianity. They use science too. They've used other religions as well. But you're telling me, you know, you guys, for all you guys that don't know, I find it hard to believe that, like, that, I mean, it's just hard to believe that this is a myth. I mean, for me, us Eastern Christians especially, you know, we don't just look at the Bible. We also look at the tradition of where our church came from. We have things also, when it comes to our tradition, that we've passed down. You know, the whole myth about Constantine forming Christianity always cracks me up too, because he wasn't a Christian. If anything, he was baptized as an Arian. And if you know anything about Christian history, you know Orthodox Christians were opposed to Arians. That's what Constantine was. You can look that up. Plus, we have books like the Didache, that was an earlier book before the canon of scriptures was even like brought together, at least the New Testament. I mean, they were all scattered letters pretty much, but the Didache was one thing that a lot of Christians followed from the first century, you know. And that there's a whole thing, a lot of things were answered even within Eastern Christianity. Even if you're not an Orthodox Christian, if you're a fan of church history, I would say look into, our Eastern Christian faith. I tend to be more further east than any Russian Orthodox or Greek Orthodox. As I said before, I'm Ethiopian Tewahedo Orthodox. We're with the Egyptians, the Indians, the Syrians. We're pretty much basically the Church of Africa and what is now called the Middle East, which to me is still Africa. But that's another story. I saw somebody mention this Christ Seraphis. I often laugh when people now mention that, because before I didn't know about that. But up on some research, I'm like, those are two different people, first of all. Second of all, I mean, you're reaching at this point, because the earlier Christians had nothing to do with any of that stuff. And that was some kind of cult. I mean, even when you talk about the parallels of this Seraphis dude, it was not parallel at all with the Christ, with Yeshua that we know. What, he had a beard and long hair supposedly? Well, the book of Revelation talks about what our Christ had. Woolly hair and feet of bronze. So no, I don't believe in that at all. That falls flat. That's just basically another person that they try to, I forgot the term, but just basically try to like put in there, And also, all of you that have this thing about, oh yeah, Christianity is a Greco-Roman religion and all that. Well, check this out. Here's a question for you. Why were Christians persecuted by Roman pagans and Greeks for the first few centuries? And we were burned and called atheists, ironically, because we would not serve those gods. No, it's not a Greco-Roman religion. You could use language as an excuse or whatever, but I mean, keep in mind, there's a long history before Rome made it trendy to be a Christian. As a matter of fact, some were so suspect of Rome when it did do that, they fled to the deserts. All the desert mothers and fathers of Egypt and Nubia, they fled to the desert. They're like, hey, we're going to the desert and pray so we could be more conscious about our ways and what we are doing, instead of getting caught up in the trendiness of what they're saying our religion is. Which brings me to this. I'm just going to close and say, if you are a Christian, you are supposed to be woke. That comes without even saying it. I'm not saying that I'm perfect in saying that, but that's something that I know, because God is always drawing me and he's always teaching me. Even when I'm stubborn and don't want nothing to do with that, I know myself better than I know anyone else. I know my faults. I know my weaknesses. There's times that I've been rebellious against God, even with what I know. And that's why I can't put nobody down. And if I sound like I'm spitting venom, I'm just trying to make sure that you understand where I'm coming from. Yeah, there may be some anger in that, but I want people to be understandable, man. I love Gab Talk. I love what he did last night, because he was trying to bring the same clarity. Granted, me and Gab Talk don't agree on the same thing religiously, but you know what? That brother was speaking truth, man. He was trying to get us to be open as far as the way that we talk to each other and respect each other. Not have this holier than thou attitude, whether you believe in God or not. And shout out to that brother, man. Gab Talk, man. Shout out to Lisa Cabrera too, man. Like, shoot, like just I haven't caught any of the Bible streams in a while, but I appreciate that. I really do. And shout out to all of you guys that listen to me, and it's very few, but I really appreciate you all because I know I'm different. How many black Ethiopian Orthodox punk rockers do you guys know that break dance at that and pop lock from the LBC East Side? Do y'all know? Not a lot. So I appreciate that, man, But yeah, if you're a Christian out there, I understand, and I'll be honest with you guys. I'm not always gonna answer nice. I'll probably spit fire back, but know that you could always talk to me and talk with me with respect. I'll come with respect first, but if I'm insulted, I'll be honest. I have to, I might return fire. Lord have mercy. I'm not saying that that's right. There's always a good way to answer instead of just spitting venom at people, But that's something that I have to practice. And I'm always learning, like Brother Neely Fuller said. I'm always learning, I know this has been long, but I'd like to know your guys' opinion. I just thought I would freestyle, especially over this particular icon. This is a classic icon in our Ethiopian Orthodox Church. It's the gospel icon. It's a beautiful icon too, Got the black angel surrounding, the face of Christ, and then the disciples representing the four, corners of the earth. It's my favorite icon. I love this icon. I even, anytime I see it, I just dig it. Somebody had a shirt, some friends of mine, and I'm glad they had this. And a brother gave me a button, and he didn't know that this was my favorite icon. But anyways, you guys, peace and blessings to you. Exiabar Yebarkachu, that means may God bless you in Amharinya, or actually in Gez. Shoot, what else was it? Oh, yeah, peace. Bese mehab well woman first kadus ahadu amlak amin.